Hi there, I'm Drew Badger, the world's #1 English fluency guide, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to another advanced listening practice lesson. As always, I will be speaking a bit more quickly. I may slow down at some point in this video like I usually do, but in general, I will be speaking much more quickly than I usually do in my previous lessons and in other video series on the EnglishAnyone.com YouTube channel. So if you are new to the channel and your English is pretty good, but you have trouble understanding faster English, I recommend you go and watch those other videos first. This video is actually connected with episode 14 in this series, talking about the first rule of fluency. So this one will be talking about the second rule of fluency. But if you, again, are not ready for this level of speed, and I'm not even speaking very quickly yet, I'll get into that in just a second. But if you're not ready for that, again, go back and watch those other videos. But if you are, let's begin the lesson. So I had actually a great response from that first video, or I guess the 14th video in the series where I was talking about the first rule of fluency, and a lot of people caught on. So they caught on to the fact, they understood, or they grasped something. So they caught on to the fact that a lot of what I teach is applicable not only for English learning or Spanish learning or whatever it is you're trying to do, but for learning anything or for succeeding at anything in life. Because I'm so big on principles. To be big on something means you're like a very proud supporter of that thing. You really like that thing a lot. So I'm very big on the focus on principles, because a lot of students get caught up in like, where's the lesson? Tell me this vocabulary word. Tell me that vocabulary word. And this is the same thing that happens in every industry. And I'll kind of share a little secret with you for people that teach things or other people that provide information. It could be people selling books or anything. But, most people that sell things, whatever that thing is, it could be a video game, a book, a movie, or other things like that, but especially information, because it takes, longer to digest, longer to consume. And then this is really kind of something different from a CD or a movie. I mean, it does take a little bit of time with movies as well, but often you'll see, especially with things where you have a couple of videos that you have to watch or a whole bunch of things like a book, especially that you have to read, most people will buy the book, but then it will just sit on the shelf. And most of the people that are, selling lessons are really disappointed about that, myself included. So, I'll have lessons that I sell or whatever, just like other people, and some people will actually go through the course and they'll be like, wow, the program really worked for me. And other people will just not actually use it. Either they'll buy the course and do nothing with it, or not go through the whole thing for whatever reason. As good as I can make the program, and we're always trying to make it better, honestly, it doesn't really matter what the program is. Everyone that's, selling information or trying to help people learn something, everyone that's doing this complains of the same problem. And a lot of this is like people want, the quick fix. They want that magic pill that's going to deliver them whatever solution is they're looking for. In the case of fluency, it's like, let me just take the fluency pill. I would love to create the fluency pill. I think that would be awesome. I would take that myself. But until we have something like that, we're going to have to learn the old-fashioned way, which is studying, the rules and principles as well as the other physical, well, I guess maybe physical in the case of, learning a new skill. So something like basketball or learning how to play an instrument, something like that. But you're going to have to do the leg work, the actual grunt work, the hard work of having to learn that particular thing. But the interesting thing is that if you focus on the principles, instead of, focusing on the little, it's kind of the difference between focusing on the strategy versus focusing on the tactics of something. So strategy is the bigger picture idea, and this is something I talk about a lot on the program and on the videos that I make here for YouTube. But a lot of people aren't exactly interested in that. They want, give me the top 5, phrases to learn for whatever this thing. Give me the top 8 or the top 10 or something like this. And, as humans, we're attracted to this kind of information because it makes, a kind of confusing world simple. So it makes sense. But if you can be that kind of person, one of the few, so hopefully I may not get through to everyone who's watching this video, but I'm speaking to you right now. Don't worry about anybody else. I'm talking to you right now. And what I'd like you to do is actually listen very carefully to what I'm about to say, because the second rule of fluency is incredibly important. Just to give a quick recap, the video where I was talking about in episode 14 of this very video series, which you can find on YouTube. This is probably in the same playlist if you're watching this on a playlist right now. If this is your own channel, put this video in a playlist you have too, because it's really going to be an important video. Anyway, so that video, I'm talking about the first rule of fluency, and that is how you think determines the results you get. So, like, let's say just a very, I guess a very average, ordinary example would be like I go outside and it starts raining. So something happens to me, and then, I have to decide how I'm going to react to that thing. Now, maybe a kind of angry person in general would have, rain fall, and then he would get angry about that. But you can also choose to behave in a different way. And I gave the example of being able to pick up a pen. So I was holding a pen and showing that if I can move this pen with my mind, imagine what else I can do with my mind, because there's really no limitation. It all depends on how you're thinking about something. And from there, if you can develop that idea, if you can master that first idea, then everything else will fall into place. Now, something else that's really, really important and tied to that idea, if you understand that idea first, and again, I recommend you go back and watch that video if you haven't watched it already. Again, that's episode 14. I'll put a link in the description for that. But do go back and watch that video after you've seen this one if you have not seen that one already. So the second rule of fluency, again, this is really important, really, really important. And this is something that, again, it's translatable or it's applicable to things outside of fluency. So no matter what you're trying to do, if you can follow this rule, then you are much more likely to gain success or to achieve success, to reach your goals, whatever they happen to be. So whether it's fluency or beyond or anything, again, it doesn't matter. Again, we're all thinking about the principles of success and how we apply those into different areas. So I apply them as far as fluency is concerned, but other people, maybe they're teaching how to be a good writer or how to be a good listener or, whatever the skill happens to be. But this principle here, once you've figured out that I decide how I live or how I control my thoughts or whatever happens to me, I get to decide, what I do for that. Because let's say, I guess the kind of basic laws of physics, if something is pushing, an object this way, it has to move that way. So this is a very, fundamental law of physics. An object will be moving this way if it's acted upon by another object. But in the human mind, it doesn't have to work like that. You could be pushed this way and you could get out of the way. You could push back. You could do something else. There are lots of different things. So again, I'm just kind of going over and over about this, because it's such an such an important thing to understand, and that's why I want you to review it very carefully. So the first rule of fluency is that you control your thoughts, you decide how you feel and how you react, and that's what's going to give you success. No matter what happens to you, you can always, think about it in a different way or choose to react in a different way, something like that. So go back and watch that video. But after you've done that, the second rule of fluency, listen very carefully to this, because it's going to sound a little bit weird if you're not kind of used to the way I talk or the way I think. So the second rule of fluency, as well as the secret to, being able to succeed at whatever it is you want to do in life, is to stumble forward. You have to stumble forward if you want to succeed. You have to stumble forward. And I don't really know, people kind of present this idea in different ways. I don't really know of anybody that's like, hey, like, yay for stumbling forward, something like this. But if you can think about the idea of forward motion, so the idea of moving towards whatever your goal is, the idea of forward motion, but you combine this with the idea of not exactly knowing how to do it. So instead of walking forward, you're stumbling forward. As an example, let's say I'm walking like this and I like trip over a rock. I'm stumbling over a rock. It just means to trip, and like maybe I don't fall completely on my face, but I'm kind of like, stumbling a little bit. What I want you to do, and this is the exact same thing I do in my own life, is to stumble forward like there is just like rock after rock after rock in front of you, and you keep going. You're not trying to like run forward. You're stumbling forward. Stumbling forward. So you're stumbling over this rock and you kind of fall over that rock too, and like you're not exactly doing it perfectly, but you're making great progress. And you're making great progress because things are happening to you, and that's another kind of insight, what I'll talk about in this video. But the idea of stumbling forward means that even if you don't know exactly where you want to go, you open up your mind to letting kind of opportunities happen to you as they're designed to happen to you based on how you think. So as an example, like I'll just, talk very candidly and openly about my own business and how it's developed over the years. So I've had this idea for a really long time about how I can actually help the entire world learn the English language from like the absolute zero to, being able to understand highly technical things and being able to understand other things like business or science or whatever, but in a really easy to understand way. And, as I've had these ideas and I've started to build different pieces of this structure, which will become a complete thing, and that's what English Anyone will be. And that's why I created the name of English Anyone, because anybody can learn the language with the system I am building. So when the whole thing is built, it will be like a massive structure that you could get in at pretty much any point and actually start getting fluent. It wouldn't really matter where you started. So when thinking about that, I don't really have, like real business skills. I didn't, have like a college degree in business or a, master's or something like that, any particular business degree. I just had a desire to do that thing. And I started stumbling forward, figuring out how that would happen. So I'm not walking forward. Walking forward means you're trying to be careful and you're trying to decide exactly how you should move because you think you know exactly how something should happen. Now, often in life, you probably experience this a number of times when you do something and then you notice like, gee, it didn't happen the way I planned it would happen. So maybe you were thinking something was going to happen in a certain way, but it didn't actually happen that way. Now, in my case, since I've been stumbling forward, again, I'm just trying to make progress without exactly knowing, like, number one, where I should go, but I'm not worried about doing it perfectly because I know, I can always come back. Failures are something that are, basically things that are temporary. So, and if you hear my daughter, that's my daughter screaming in the next room, but hopefully she'll let me stumble forward through this video. Anyway, to get back to the point, so if we combine the ideas of not knowing where you're going to go, and even though you have a specific if you have a specific outcome that you'd like to achieve and you don't know exactly how you're going to get there, all you can do is really start stumbling forward. You start making progress, you start working towards something, telling other people about it. And at every point in my business where like I've hit like a wall somewhere and I've needed to grow, I don't really stop and worry about it too much. I just keep kind of pushing forward and know that like because my desire is so strong to build this like really powerful system that anybody can use to get fluent, the people that will come into my life, like my daughter, the people that will come into my life will support that in a particular way, which I can't really decide how that's going to happen beforehand. So I think I'm a smart person, but I know I'm not smart enough to understand how all of these things are going to happen. Now, I don't know if this is like being psychic or whatever, but basically I'm just open to the possibility of I have a particular place I want to get to, but I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there. So I'm always keeping my eyes and ears open for opportunities and thinking like, oh, like this thing happens to my life in a certain time, in a certain way. And I can tell, oh, this is happening because I'm going in the right direction. So you've got kind of signposts all over the place if you're continuing to stumble forward, but you only see them if you're stumbling forward. If you're walking forward, you're really making slow progress and you don't know if you're actually trying to do something, working towards your goal or not. So it's really important that you start stumbling forward and start making decisions based on, what your primary goal is. And if you don't have a primary goal, you shouldn't be stumbling at all. Like you shouldn't be making any progress until you really decide what it is you want to do. Now, it doesn't matter what that thing is, and you could even have a small goal or, whatever that thing is, but you should always be, combining these two ideas. And that's what the second rule of fluency is. So you have to have not only the particular place you want to go, and in the case of a fluent learner or somebody that is learning the English language or whatever, trying to get fluent, you would want to be focusing on a specific reason why you're learning the language to make the pull of that goal what I call a magnetic goal. And I've actually talked about this, I think, in the podcast series, but I've talked about magnetic goals before. And hopefully my daughter's like magnetically pulling me into the next room. I'm going to have to go attend to her in a moment. But if you think about these ideas, the strength of the goal that you have, the stronger you can make that. And this is why I talk to students about tell me a whole story about what fluency means to you. Like you can even do that in the comments below. Don't just say, I want to get fluent. You want to get fluent for what? What do you want to do with that? Because if you say, I want to get fluent, that's the same thing as saying, I want to get rich. And that's just not a very powerful thing that the mind can get excited about. Now, your mind is a very powerful thing. And we saw that in the first, or I guess the previous lesson where we were talking about the first rule of fluency. So if the mind is so powerful, you have to give it something to attach itself to, and that's that ultimate goal. But then the second part of that is you have to start stumbling forward making progress where even if you don't know exactly how something is going to happen, it's the goal that pulls you there and sends you in the right direction. So you've got to have a great goal and then trust yourself to be pulled to that goal, because your mind wants to help you. It really does. Your mind wants to set you up for success, and all you have to do is give it a direction. So once you do that, you start moving, stumbling forward. In my case, like as soon as I've decided I want to do this, like I found a person who's going to help us like build our app. I found a guy who's able to do voiceover recording. I found a guy who was able to help with writing lessons and editing things. I found another person who was able to do, here's like a perfect example. Like a couple of days ago, I was talking with a friend of mine. I was like, man, I really want like a person that's great with statistics and, some other things like that. And a day later, I got a Facebook email from a friend of mine that's like, hey, I know somebody that's like, looking for like exactly that kind of work, something like that. So again, it's not about like, you could even call it like a synchronicity. And this just means when, things are synced, or let's say you buy a new red car and you start noticing new red cars all over the place. These things were already there all the time, but you just didn't notice them until you started opening your mind to that thing. And so that's why these two ideas, the first rule of fluency, which is having a particular goal and realizing that the mind is very powerful, but you won't be able to connect to that thing until you start stumbling forward. So the second rule of fluency is to start stumbling forward. And what I'd like you to do to help you with that, to help guide your mind and to, help me with more things if I can create better lessons to help you achieve that goal, is in the comments in this video, I'd like you to be like very descriptive. Actually tell me why you're trying to get fluent. What do you want to get with it? All the kinds of things. Like actually imagine your daily life with fluency. What will you be doing? What's the whole point of your learning? I mean, for my case, I wanted to start speaking Japanese fluently so I could interact in the community. I could build gardens and actually learn how to do things in a deeper way in the community. And so if you don't have something like that, again, it's going to be more difficult without a specific goal to get yourself to that point. So the second rule of fluency is you have to stumble forward. And this means like, you could potentially make a mistake, you could do something, but your mind is just so focused on pulling yourself to this goal that who cares about like an individual mistake or whatever. I make mistakes all the time. You see like these videos I make, I got like my daughter in the background complaining about stuff. I mean, like my lighting system is, I got a new lighting system. It's like pretty cool, but I don't really know how it works properly. But you think that's stopping me from giving it a try? Hell no. So I want you to be thinking in the exact same way. Follow both the first rule of fluency and the second rule of fluency. And the more you can do these things, again, having a goal and realizing that you have a mind that's powerful enough to get you there if that goal is strong enough. And again, you have to be very specific about what you want, but then allowing yourself to follow that thing by stumbling forward. So you don't have to run, don't be crazy. And you don't have to walk either. It's not really going to get you there, but you have to stumble forward. It's kind of like you're moving forward in an almost dark room where you can't really see what's happening, but it's not scaring you from moving forward. Well, think about all these things or both of these two things, and I really look forward to reading what you say in the comments. Don't say I want to get fluent. Actually take a time, write at least like 2 or 3 paragraphs of something. Give me a long and detailed comment and make this the day that you really decide what you want, whatever that happens to be. And again, think about this. See, Aria agrees with me. Aria's like, yeah, So she's going to have her goals and I'm going to be on her about that as well. So whatever it is she wants to do, hey, figure out what that is and go do it. But don't let anything stop you from doing that thing. The only thing you have to decide is what you want. Well, that's it for this lesson. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the second and, again, kind of a refresher for the first rule of fluency. Go back and watch that. Again, I believe it is episode 14 of the Advanced Listening Practice series. But I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I'm not going to worry about how many views this gets. I just enjoy making these videos. And the more video views it gets, the faster I'll want to make them. But we won't worry about any particular video count. If I've got time, I'll make more. But hopefully you're enjoying these. Do share them. Do like the video. And if you are new to the channel and you are still watching this and you have not yet subscribed, do subscribe to the channel because you'll be the first to see new videos when they appear. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And I'll see you then. Bye-bye. To continue learning, click on the link in this video to download Speak English Naturally, our free guide to speaking and sounding like a native English speaker. The guide reveals the 3 most important kinds of conversational English you must learn if you want to sound native, and will help you experience instant improvement in your fluency and speaking confidence. To download your free guide on a mobile device, click on the link in the upper right of this video. To download your free guide from a computer, click on the link in the lower right of this video. I look forward to seeing you in the guide.